mercy, here she comes, behind the wheel of a pickup truck. Mud slanging, she's singing, country girl just doing her thing.
Hi friends, Bev from Our Half Acre Homestead here. Today is a quiet day for me. Recently, back in the end of March, I had 6 hernias repaired across around my belly button, and some ill ovaries removed. And the hernias are a result of the fact that I have an extremely sway back, and I'm not supposed to lift heavy stuff. And it's taken me a long time to learn to be kinder to myself and allow the men in my life, my sons and my husband, to do the heavy stuff. So what I want to say is, My Half Acre Homestead was just the name of my blog. It's actually Our Half Acre Homestead, because I couldn't do any of this without my husband. So, but today's a putter day. You know, I need to rest today. So I'm going to maybe do some dishes, maybe do some laundry, figure out what I'm going to have for supper. But what this video is about is you. You know, when I started this journey, a lot of people thought that I just sprang up on YouTube knowing all this stuff. I actually don't. I researched, and a lot of times when you see me do something like making pectin, like making butter, like making cheese, like using the cream separator, you guys are seeing this stuff for the first time. My first time. So, and you've been incredibly supportive, and I've had so much fun knowing that I have somebody to share it with. And so this is kind of a thank you to you guys, you know. But I was actually born in the city. I was born in downtown Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And I was like 2 blocks from the waterfront and a streetcar ride away from ice skating at City Hall every winter. So, but I was lucky. I was really lucky. I grew up on a dead-end street, where there was only like 28 houses. But on our side of the street, when, you know, there were 4 houses. There was, well, 3 at first, and then my cousin Linda bought the house next door to us. But there were how, you know, I had family. And that family was on my mom's side, and they were only 1 generation off the farm. Heck, a lot of them were born on the farm. So I got a lot of education from them. Unfortunately, my mother died when I was 9, and we moved away, and contact was limited after that, because back then everything was long distance, and the long distance was expensive. We didn't have internet. But, you know, some things are in your blood. You know, they're just in your blood. Like, I come from Scots, English background, and I have native blood in me as well. So, I mean, your blood doesn't lie to you when it comes time to do things or live your life. And what I remember my uncle, you know, my uncle's having a big garden out in the country, or as of actually, thanks for I just remembered, they had garden lots down at the waterfront in Toronto that you could rent for the season. And I remember my brother renting one garden, but I remember my Uncle Joe renting lots, because we didn't have enough space in our little backyards in Toronto for gardening. But I can remember Uncle Joe bringing Mom things like, you know, half bushels of tomatoes and stuff. And Mom made, it's a very vague memory because I was a little girl, but Mom made things like canned tomatoes and stuff. And we didn't have a freezer, and there were 5 kids in our house. So you either ate it fresh or you ate it canned, okay? Or it came out of what little freezer space we had. So I guess what I'm trying to say is this back to basics lifestyle for me is really a journey. And the more I get entrenched in it, the more wonderful it becomes. When I made that cheese, when I made the butter, when I milked the goat for the first time, it was a liberating experience. Sitting down to a supper of fried chicken, beans, corn, and garlic potatoes and a glass of fresh goat's milk, and knowing that everything on that plate came from work that we did on this little half acre. It's an amazing feeling. It's a wonderful feeling. And as the pantry starts to fill, I feel like Scrooge McDuck in his pile of gold, you know? I go in my pantry and I look and I count my jars of beans and carrots and my dehydrated apples and strawberries and I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful. And everything is a learning experience for me. I remember once when I was a little girl getting dressed for school. I probably was in senior kindergarten or grade 1 or whatever. And we were just had breakfast and we're getting ready to go to school. I think it was sometime in May. And my Uncle Joe came walking in from down the street and my mother said, "Go get your play clothes on." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Because you and Bobby, Uncle Joe's taking you and Bobby to school today." And I said, "But why the play clothes?" And she said, "Because it's not school at school. You're going out with Uncle Joe for the day." And that day is a little foggy because I was just a little girl, but I remember eating rose hips and picking leeks and what my Uncle Joe called it bear's garlic, and learning what a puffball was. And I wish I had remembered all the things he taught me about the different mushrooms. But my Uncle Joe knew what was edible in the Don Valley, in Toronto, for God's sakes. I mean, that man, my father had a saying, because my Uncle Joe was my mom's brother. My father had a saying, you could drop Uncle Joe from a plane in the middle of winter, in the dead of the bush, in his underwear, and that man would come out fat and sassy and grinning in the spring. And it was true. It was really true. Uncle Joe would not starve. I mean, after my mother died, I know I went to their house for lunch a couple of times, and because Dad didn't have the heart to make me eat lunch at school when I was used to coming home. So one day I would go to Stella's down the street, and another day I'd come home for lunch, and it would be at my Uncle Joe's. And I remember coming home one day to dandelion salad and wild onion soup. I mean, you just never knew. And but it was delicious, you know. My Aunt Jane had a 2-acre, I think it was 2 acres. She had a 2-acre farm in a place near Lake Simcoe in Ontario. And I remember her washing butter at the corn roast when we raised her hay barn. I remember watching her work the butter with a wooden paddle and a wooden bowl and running it under ice water, like running ice water in it and working it out and pouring off the cloudy water. That's how I remember that. Not from books. I remember seeing that. It was I think I was about 7 at the time. My Aunt Doll. God, my Aunt Doll. Well, Uncle Joe was one for taking us for drives. He'd just walk in the house and say, "I'm taking the kids." And my mom said, "Fine," right? And we'd go for drives in the country. And we'd pick up my Aunt Doll. And if we were going for a drive in the country, you can bet for certain Aunt Doll had her little wicker fishing basket and her pole, and she'd pop that in the trunk. And she'd say, "Pull over, Joe, pull over." And he'd say, "What?" And she'd say, "There's a brook in there." And he'd go, "How do you know?" She says, "I can see it." Okay. I don't know if it was the landscape or the smell of the air, but my Aunt Doll could smell a brook trout from 500 paces. She could smell it from the road. And sure enough, we'd walk into the woods and there'd be a little stream about that wide. Couldn't be more than 2-3 feet wide, and it that deep. And she would tie a fly on, and she'd say to us kids, "Now be real quiet." And she'd flick that in, and bang, that woman would pull out a trout every time. I'm telling you. So these are the people. I remember Uncle Jim teaching me how to make bran muffins and teaching me to appreciate a real cup of tea. You know, a great big hot cup of tea with a home-baked bran muffin. He taught me that home-baked was the best, aside from my mother. But, I mean, he also broke down a lot of my perceptions that men didn't cook. I always thought men didn't cook, aside from Uncle Joe, because Uncle Joe was different. My Uncle Bill was the music man. He brought music into our lives. Aunt Gladys made the best sour cherry jam from a tree in her front yard. These people used what was available. grocery. I mean, come on, restaurant food, folks. From the age right up until the age of 13 years old. I bet you I had takeout, restaurant, or restaurant food or takeout or delivery less than 10 times in my first 13 years of life. Because it was a novelty. It was something special. A lot of people nowadays, they eat at a restaurant. For us, the only time I eat at a restaurant, to me, going to a restaurant is no longer special. Going to a restaurant is a way to escape cooking. That's it. It's not special because most of the restaurants can't produce a meal like I produce with fresh eggs, home-raised meat, home-raised vegetables, home-raised milk. You can't get that stuff in restaurants anymore. They can't buy farm produce. Well, they can buy farm produce, but they can't buy fresh milk and fresh eggs unless they are government controlled. So I guess what I'm saying is this has been a heck of a journey, and it's not over. It is so not over. We're just beginning to have fun, and it is fun. It is. It's a journey of discovery, and you guys just fuel my fire. But today I'm resting. I just wanted to say thanks, guys, for encouraging me to do what I always wanted to do. Anyway, have a great day. And in the next couple of days, there'll be another video on something. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Ain't nothing like my backwoods baby. Drive my tractor, drive me crazy. Likes hunting, loves fishing, and she can hold her own in the kitchen. And by the way, boys, did I mention